Hi golfers, Nick here from Nick Taylor Golf. It's Wednesday, so welcome to another episode of Golf Talk. This week on Golf Talk, I'm going to cover 5 golfing myths that I hear every day on the golf course and on the golf range.
First myth we're going to cover is the weight shift. I see a lot of golfers in the backswing moving too much to the right, swaying to the right and then swaying through. The problem with that is it makes it very difficult to control the low point of the golf swing. I'm not saying the best players don't move their weight to their back foot in the backswing. Some of them do. Some of them don't do it as much. Some of them stay very centered in the golf swing. So there's no particular way to do it, but I think it's easier if you stay more centered in the backswing as opposed to moving the weight to the right and moving it to the left. It makes it very difficult to control the low point of the golf swing, especially if you don't play much golf. The best players in the world hit so many golf balls that they can time it perfectly, whereas the average golfer doesn't practice as much, doesn't play as much, doesn't have the time to do that. So if you're trying to move your weight back and through, that can make it very difficult to control the low point of the golf swing. The second myth we're going to cover is the knee flex in the golf swing. A lot of golfers say to me, you should keep the right knee flex. So we're talking about this from a right-hander's point of view. So that you should try and keep your right knee flex in the backswing for consistency. But the problem with that is it does really restrict the turn of your body. It restricts the turn of your hips, and in turn that makes it very difficult to turn your shoulders. So if you're not very flexible and you're keeping the knee flex, you're going to really struggle to make any turn in the golf swing. Some of the best players do keep their right knee flex, some of them don't. A good example, someone that does, is Danny Willett. He still manages to get a pretty good turn of his shoulders even by keeping his right knee flex. Whereas some of the longest hitters, they do straighten their back leg. Someone like Dustin Johnson, Bubba Watson, they straighten their back leg in the backswing. This helps them increase their hip turn. So I think straightening the back leg can really help certain people. I think it helps me. It helps me turn my hips, helps me bring my hands more on an inward path. So maybe straightening the back leg isn't such a bad thing in the backswing. Third myth we're going to cover is the release of the hands. This is really important. I see a lot of golfers, they're trying to draw the golf ball by releasing the hands as they go through. They're trying to release the hands like that. The problem with that is, the more you release the hands, the more you're going to close the club face. And to hit a draw, at impact, your club face needs to be open to your target line to start the ball right. It needs to be open to target, obviously closed to the path. That's what gives you the draw. So the best golfers that draw the ball, they're not trying to turn the club face over as they hit the ball. The release of the club happens naturally. So they will turn the club eventually over as they go through, but that happens more after they've hit the ball, or more of a natural movement. They're not actively trying to release the hands. Some may feel they do that, but it doesn't actually happen. If you look at on the video, slow motion, you can see at impact the club face for the people that draw the golf ball is slightly open, otherwise the ball wouldn't start right. And to draw the golf ball, the ball needs to start right. So if you're slicing the golf ball, or you're failing to draw the golf ball, it's probably more of an issue to do with your path of the golf swing or where your weight is at impact than maybe the release of the hands. Fourth myth we're going to cover is the swing path. I see a lot of golfers, as they're practicing to try and hit the ball straight, they're swinging up and down the target line like that. You don't see any good players do that. They swing the club around their body in more of an arc. So if you look at the clubs on the ground, instead of having them straight, you have them more of an angle like that and put the ball in front. Try and swing around the body this way, you're going to find more consistency in the path of the golf swing. No one hits the ball dead straight, everyone curves the golf ball. So trying to hit the ball straight by trying to swing down the target line is a bit of a myth. What the best players do is have control over the path of the swing and the club face as they hit the ball, but actually their hands and their club move inwards on the backswing, inwards on the follow through. They do not move down the target line. Very rarely the best players do that. If you watch them, after they've hit the golf ball, their club and their hands will start moving to the left. So they don't swing up and down the target line, they swing around their body in an arc or a circle. Okay, so the fifth myth we're going to talk about is the head movement. And I see a lot of golfers practicing and they think keeping their head down is the right thing to do. I think keeping the head steady is very important, not necessarily keeping it down. When I swing, my head stays in position, but it actually tilts slightly to the left in the backswing, so it helps me turn. Then as I go through, it tilts the other way slightly to the right as I go through. So although my head hasn't moved out of position, it has tilted slightly. So I think that's fine. You can tilt the head slightly as you swing back and through, because you can then keep it in position. What you don't want to do is try and keep the head down, and I certainly don't think you should be moving the head around, because that makes it very difficult to make control of the golf swing. Some players do move their head a little bit, some of the best players, but obviously their timing is impeccable and they hit a lot of golf balls, so they can manage to have some sort of degree of control. Whereas the average golfer, if they're moving their head too much, it makes it very difficult to control the swing. Also, by keeping it down, locked in position, it makes it very difficult to turn. So I think it's acceptable to slightly tilt it as you go back and as you go through. And if you can do that, hopefully you'll hit the golf ball better.
Thanks for watching, golfers. I appreciate there's probably a lot more myths that I've not covered in this episode. If you've got any comments on the ones that I've mentioned, please post them in the comments below, or you can catch me on other social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.